moment she pressed the photo into my hands, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a baby. I've been a labor and delivery nurse for 9 years. I've stood in rooms where women screamed and cried and laughed all at once. I've held hands during the worst moments of people's lives and the best. I know what a fetal ultrasound looks like at 16 weeks. I know the curve of a spine, the flutter of a 4-chamber heart, the round shadow of a skull still soft enough to pass through bone. What I was looking at was none of those things. "Isn't she perfect?" my sister said. She was glowing, pink confetti still caught in her hair from the popper she'd set off 20 minutes earlier. Her cheeks were flushed from laughing, from champagne, from being the center of the most beautiful afternoon I'd seen in years. The backyard was full of people who loved her. Streamers, a cake with a pink bow on top, balloons tied to every chair. I kept my face very, very still. I said, "She really is." And then I excused myself to use the bathroom. I didn't use the bathroom. I went to the side of the house where the gate to the front yard is, the narrow alley between the fence and the rose bushes my mother planted 15 years ago. I stood there with the photo in my hand and I looked at it again under full sun. No shade, no flattering party lighting, just direct afternoon light and 9 years of knowing what I know. The mass was in the lower left quadrant, dense, irregular at the edges. No fetal pole, no gestational sac, no yolk sac, no heartbeat indicator. Whatever my sister had been shown, whatever she'd been told, this was not a pregnancy. My hands were steady, they're always steady, that's the job. But my chest felt like something had been removed from it. My sister's name is Bree. She's 31, 2 years younger than me. She married her husband, a quiet, careful man named Dorian, 4 years ago in a small ceremony in the same backyard. They'd been trying for a baby since almost the beginning. I knew the months of negative tests, the acupuncture, the supplements, the specific brand of prenatal vitamins she'd been taking for 2 years before she ever got a positive result. I knew what it cost her every time a pregnancy announcement landed in our family group chat that wasn't hers. And then, 8 weeks ago, she called me crying, the good kind. "It's happening," she'd whispered. "It's actually happening." I had cried too, right there in the hospital parking lot between shifts, sitting in my car with my head against the steering wheel. So standing in that side alley holding a piece of paper that told me something was very, very wrong. I wasn't angry yet. I was just trying to breathe. I went back inside the house, not back to the party, to the kitchen. Dorian was in there. He'd slipped away from the guest to refill the ice bucket, and when he saw my face, he set the bucket down on the counter without a word. "What's wrong?" he asked. He always knows. He's been married to my sister long enough to know that when I go quiet, something is happening behind it. I set the ultrasound photo on the kitchen island between us. I said, "I need you to tell me where this was taken." He looked at me. Then he looked at the photo. The imaging center on Halstead, the one her OB referred her to. When did she see her OB last? Initial confirmation appointment 6 weeks ago. Next appointment is Thursday. Has she had any symptoms? Cramping? Spotting? Anything she mentioned to you? His face was changing while I talked. She had some nausea, fatigue. She said that was normal. "Dorian." I kept my voice level. It took everything I had. "I need you to look at this image with me." He came around the island. I pointed. "This density here. See the irregular border? There's no embryo. There's no gestational sac. Whatever is growing here, it is not a baby." I paused. "Do you understand what I'm telling you?" He went very still. Outside, through the kitchen window, I could hear my sister laughing at something. The sound of it went through me like a wire. "Are you sure?" he said. "I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I've assisted with more ultrasounds than I can count. I'm not a radiologist, and I'm not diagnosing her, but I am telling you that this image needs to be looked at by her doctor today. Not Thursday, today." He picked up his phone. He put it down. He picked it up again. "She's going to be devastated," he said. His voice came out strange, thin. "I know. Today is the happiest she's been in years. I haven't seen her like this in." He stopped. I know, I said again. We stood there for a moment in the kitchen that smelled like sugar and punch and the specific warmth of too many people packed into a backyard on a September afternoon. "What do I do?" he asked. And that question, the way he asked it like he was completely lost, was the thing that finally broke something open in me. Not tears. I don't cry easily. But something behind my sternum went soft in a way that hurt. "We tell her together," I said. "But not here, not in front of everyone." He nodded. "Let the party wind down. Let people leave naturally. Don't rush them out because she'll know something is wrong. And then we sit with her." "And then what?" "And then we take her to urgent care. And we stay with her the whole time." He looked out the window at her. She was hugging someone, one of her friends from college, laughing with her whole body the way she does when she's really happy, not performing it. "Okay," he said. The next hour was the longest of my life. I went back out to the party. I ate a piece of the pink cake. I talked to my aunt about her new apartment. I helped carry paper plates to the trash bag by the fence. And the whole time I watched my sister move through her own celebration like she was lit from the inside, touching the pink balloons, showing people the name they'd chosen, and I held every single thing I knew, completely still inside my chest, like carrying water in cupped hands and not spilling a drop. When the last guest left, Bree started collecting gift bags. She was humming to herself, happy in the uncomplicated way that is so rare in adulthood that you almost don't recognize it when you see it. "Sit down for a second," Dorian said. She looked at him, then at me, and I watched the happiness shift, not disappear, just reorganize itself into something more cautious. Because she knows us. She knows what it means when the two of us are standing together in a room being careful. "What happened?" she said. We sat with her at the kitchen table. Dorian held both her hands across the table. I sat beside her. I didn't perform it. I didn't soften it past the point of honesty. I said, "When you showed me the ultrasound photo, I noticed something that concerned me. I want to be clear that I'm not a doctor and I can't tell you what it means, but I need you to be seen today, before Thursday, so that someone who can tell you looks at it." She was very quiet. "I could be wrong," I said. "I really hope I'm wrong." She looked at the photo on the table between us. For a long time she didn't say anything. Then she said, "I knew something was off." I looked at her. I didn't want to say it. I've wanted this so long that I thought I was sabotaging myself in my head. The nausea stopped last week, and I told myself it was because I'd hit some kind of second trimester threshold. I didn't want to call the doctor because I didn't want her to tell me something was wrong. She pressed her lips together. "I already knew, didn't I?" "We don't know anything yet," Dorian said. "But you think so," she said to me. I didn't insult her by lying. "Yes." We drove to the hospital. Not urgent care. Dorian called Bree's OB from the car, explained the situation, and she met us in the ER within the hour. I don't know how she managed that. I've never loved a doctor more than I loved that woman in that moment. The imaging was done within 90 minutes of our arriving. The OB came in and she was gentle, but she was direct, which is the only kindness that actually helps in those situations. It was a dermoid cyst, large, 7 centimeters, the kind that can mimic certain pregnancy markers in blood tests, including, in rare cases, an HCG elevation that reads as a positive on a home test. The mass had likely been growing for months, possibly years, before it became symptomatic. The imaging center had flagged it as atypical presentation requiring follow-up in their report. But that report had not yet been reviewed by Bree's OB and had not been communicated to Bree. She had been walking around for 8 weeks believing she was pregnant. She had painted a nursery. She had chosen a name. She had stood in her backyard this afternoon and let pink confetti rain down on her head. And the entire time her body had been trying to tell her something else. I stepped out of the room when the doctor was talking through next steps. Surgery to remove the cyst. Confirmation that her fertility had not been compromised. A referral to a specialist. I stepped out not because I couldn't handle it, but because it wasn't my moment to be in. That room belonged to Bree and Dorian. I sat in a plastic chair in the hallway outside. The hallway of an ER at 7 in the evening has a particular kind of energy, movement and noise and the smell of industrial cleaner, and something underneath it that is just pure human exhaustion. I've worked in hospitals for almost a decade. I've sat in these chairs from the other side. I put my face in my hands for a while. Not crying, just quiet. A nurse walked past and paused. "You okay, hon?" "Yeah," I said. "I work at St. Mary's. Long day." She nodded like she understood completely, which she probably did, and moved on. The door opened about 20 minutes later. Dorian came out first. His eyes were red. He's not a man who cries easily, and seeing it made something tighten in my throat. "She wants you," he said. I went in. Bree was sitting up on the hospital bed. She'd taken the balloons out of her hair at some point. She'd been wearing 2 little pink balloon-shaped clips that one of her friends had given her as a joke gift. She looked smaller without them. Tired. Real. She looked at me and she said, "You saved my life." I didn't. She said if this had gone undetected another couple of months, it could have ruptured. Do you know what that means? I did know. Ovarian torsion, hemorrhage, emergency surgery under the worst possible conditions. I knew exactly what it meant. "You saved my life," she said again. "You didn't want to tell me. I could see it on your face when you came back to the party. You were so careful not to scare me before you had to, but you told me anyway." I sat down on the edge of the bed beside her. She leaned her head on my shoulder. We stayed like that for a while without talking. Eventually, she said, "I'm going to be okay." "Yeah," I said, "you are." The doctor said the cyst shouldn't affect my chances, that we can still try. She was quiet for a moment. "It's not over." "No," I said, "it's not." She turned her face into my shoulder and she cried. Then really cried, the way she hadn't let herself in the room with the doctor. The way she probably needed to before we walked back out to the parking lot and back to the rest of her life. I put my arm around her and I held on. I thought about all the years she'd wanted this, the tests and the waiting and the disappointment that she carried so quietly most people didn't even know it was there. I thought about the pink nursery that was going to have to be something else for a while longer. The name they'd chosen, still written in her handwriting in the notebook I'd seen on the kitchen counter. I thought about how love is sometimes the thing that makes you say the hard thing instead of the easy one. The surgery was 3 weeks later. Laparoscopic. She was home the same day. I drove her and I stayed for the weekend, sleeping on the pull-out couch in the guest room that used to be the nursery before they repainted it a quiet gray blue. She healed fast. She always has. There's something stubborn in her that I've always admired. Not the refusing to bend kind, but the bending without breaking kind. The kind that comes back. 6 months after the surgery, she called me again. Different cry this time. Same kind of good. I was in the parking lot again. Different hospital, different shift, same steering wheel. "It's a real one this time," she said. "They confirmed it. There's a heartbeat." And this time I didn't hold anything still. I just let it go. I keep coming back to the moment Bree said I already knew, didn't I? Not as a question, as something she'd been carrying for a week, and finally had permission to set down. There's something I've learned in 9 years of working in labor and delivery, something you can't learn from a textbook. The body tells the truth even when the mind isn't ready to hear it. Bree felt the nausea stop. She noticed. She filed it away under "I don't want to know" and kept buying pink onesies. I understand that completely. When you've wanted something long enough, hope becomes its own kind of armor, and sometimes that armor is the only thing keeping you standing. But here's what I also know. What that afternoon made me understand more clearly than anything else has in a long time. The truth doesn't stop being true because you look away from it. The cyst didn't stop growing because Bree was happy. The clock didn't pause for the party, for the confetti, for the name written in her notebook. Reality moves whether we're paying attention or not. What changed things wasn't luck. It wasn't accident. It was 9 years of showing up to hard rooms and learning what I was looking at. That knowledge didn't come easy. It came from exhaustion and night shifts and moments that cost me more than I usually talk about. But because I had it, I was standing in the right place at the right moment, holding a piece of paper that most people at that party would have looked at and seen only good news. I think about the version of that day where I say nothing, where I smile and hand the photo back and tell her she's beautiful. It would have been so easy. It would have felt, in the short term, like kindness. But I've learned that real care is not always comfortable. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to let them stay comfortable in something that's hurting them, even when they don't know it's hurting them yet. Even when telling them is going to shatter the most joyful afternoon of their year. Doing right by someone when it costs you something, when it means being the one who brings the hard news into the room full of pink balloons, that's not heroic. It's just what you owe the people you love. And then there's Bree herself. What she did after, the surgery, the recovery, the months of trying again. That wasn't easy either. She could have folded. She had every reason to. She'd lost something she'd been building toward for years, in a single afternoon, in the middle of a celebration. But she bent without breaking. That stubbornness of hers, the quiet, unglamorous kind that doesn't announce itself, is the thing I admire most about her. Not the joy she shows when things are good, the way she keeps going when they aren't. 6 months later, parked in a hospital lot after a 12-hour shift, I heard her cry the good kind of cry. Real this time. Confirmed. I think the reason that moment hit as hard as it did, harder almost than the first one, is because I knew what it cost to get there. Both of us. The knowing, the telling, the sitting in plastic chairs, the recovery, the waiting. Nothing about that outcome was handed to us. We earned every single bit of it.